OOCS Into a Wider Galaxy, Part 376. Capes and Conundrums. There is a momentary pause after the door opens to reveal that there are armed men on the outside. What? You thought things were over after the rescue. An entire facility was sentenced to burn in the lava trenches, and people need to know why. Things won't take long. Just be honest, Harold says. But I didn't do anything wrong, one of the girls protests. Then this won't take long at all, and you'll be helped home in short order, Harold notes. Now come on. No one will hurt you if you don't try to hurt anyone. It's a basic thing that you go through daily in public, so you should have no problem with it here and now, right? What are you implying? The Ayala asks. I don't know, miss. I am paid enough to do this. What am I implying? Harold asks her, and there's a bit of drama as everyone turns to face her. But the Carib woman turns too fast to be avoided by one of the muffies who is knocked over into the cobes. Oh, for the love of... Harold mutters as he moves into to help the women out of the cramped-in shuttle as an unhelpful Herbert giggles. Scene change. Terry. It's confusing to be tied to everything. Well, not everything, but enough to make you feel like you're tied to everything. But being all-knowing really doesn't help when you know exactly what happens, but have no idea what the hell to do about it. Okay, he does know what to do. But it's so much. It was all fun and games, and everyone insisting he be safe and careful was just an old worrywart that didn't know which way was up. But no, a gouge in his neck, fully intending to take off his head, had proved that wrong. Very wrong. He deliberately slows his breathing. He knows calming techniques leaking in from the undaunted humans, currently part of the astral forest. There is an inquiry, a question, and he answers yes. Hey, the undaunted man says, having quite the day, aren't you? Yeah, Terry says as he rubs at his neck. One's first brush with death is always a memorable one. The man says, adjusting his glasses before giving Terry a grin. Come on, follow my lead. Why? Because it helps. It helped me a long, long time ago. And why are you helping me? Terry asks, and the man shrugs. I may have my youth back, but I'm old. I've seen more than most men should. I have had lifetimes compressed into singular days, often for weeks straight, the older man says before taking a step away, intating a wide stance that he gestures for Terry to mimic. After a few moments, he does. And let me guess, you came out tougher and stronger than ever before. Oh yes, but only after breaking, Daiju says slowly, beginning to lead Terry in the meditative moves. Terry notes that he knows the man's name now. It's just filtering in. He's not familiar with this man, but he knows him now. It's the strange gift of the forest. Breaking? In my homeland, the most commonly available source of iron is of poor quality. Very poor quality indeed. It needs to not only melt it numerous times to purify it, but the steel must be beaten, folded, beaten again, and folded again time after time to make even a respectable sword out of it, Daiju says. And what does making a primitive metal sword from poor quality iron have to do with anything? Terry asks incredulously. People are like the iron. It takes beatings, fire, further beatings, and more fire to make something of yourself. You've had some initial knocks, but this is one of the first real blows against your being. Do you shatter? Do you bend? Is this the swing that shatters you, or the one that forges you? Daiju asks. Think on it, boy, and go through the rest of the kata. Movement can help, but mindless pacing or flailing just leads to nothing. This gives you strength and grace instead. Then Daiju pulls at the more distant forest and fades away, not only from Terry's perspective, but from the astral forest entirely. He is of the dark forest again, but he's left behind knowledge of the entire kata. Terry goes through it 3 times before he nods to himself and vanishes from the Vinic Nebula. He has family to care for. Scene change. Blazing Iron and Mani. Well, ain't this a blast from the past? Blazing Iron notes as he and Moni arrive at the station. Tell me, is the snack kid still doing runs across the street? I'm over here, a pissed-off voice states, and Blazing Iron's gaze rakes across the room to ping the kid working paperwork. So you are. They're still not letting you do actual work, eh? Pity that. I go out on patrol plenty, the young officer protests. Sure you do, kid. Sure you do, Blazing Iron says in an amused tone. So do I get to watch little Miss Trigger happy here being interrogated, or am I gonna have to leave? You left. You're no longer an officer of this or any other station. So yes, you will be barred from witnessing the interrogation. And I'm sure your skills in getting girls to talk is just as strong as ever. Blazing Iron notes in amusement. Looks like I've got some ashes to dig through. No, you will not. You are not a police officer. You are not even a private detective. You am a private citizen with the legal right to protect my life. And so long as I stay within the bounds of law, you can only temporarily detain me. Blazing Iron states, walking right up to his former chief. As an Agala, he naturally towers over almost every living person in the galaxy, and his former superior, the Tret woman Chief Gilia, has to stand on her desk to be face to neck with him. Enough! Getting in a contest of who's got the biggest tits in the room is stupid. Money protests, pulling back Blazing Iron, who goes with it, with a smug grin before Gilia gets off her desk. Especially when I win it despite the handicap. Blazing Iron states with a chuckle. I'll see you dames around. And you, kid, try not to be too good at things, otherwise they'll say you were on the take next. Then he leaves the station before anyone even thinks to stop him. God damn it, Iron, Money mutters. That punk was never fit to be one of us. A brute from first to last. Let this be a reminder, girls. It doesn't matter whether they've got tits or a dick. You can find scumbags in all walks of life. Chief Gilia calls around the station and then pauses as she catches sight of the look on Moni's face. And do you have a problem? No, I was just wondering if you needed anything else from me. This woman did try to kill 2 former police officers after all. If we're being targeted now, then how long until one of your girls is in the targeting computer? Moni asks. Never. It's never going to happen because the scum that would try such a thing understand the consequences of those actions. Never discount the stupidity of others, Chief. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to make sure the big guy that just stomped out doesn't do anything stupid. Moni says, you do that, if you want your job back, you're free to come back at any time. Unlike that thick-headed Agella, you actually understand how things work around here. Yes, I do, Moni says before heading out the station. The younger man on the desk is already gone. Somewhere. The answer is outside the station, apparently, which is raising far, far more questions as she heads across the street to where Blazing Iron is apparently buying a large amount of treats before leaving the area. The chimes above the door rings as she enters. What I'm saying is that it doesn't matter how much or how little faith I have in the system itself. So long as pieces of shit are on the levers of power, it doesn't matter how good or bad the rest are. Good cops follow orders, bad cops disobey. It doesn't matter what the orders are or the reason for disobeying. But you were cleared? All allegations of you taking bribes were cleared after the cases were closed. After several women I had been investigating conveniently had some prior commitment that had never been mentioned before on another planet come up. And do you remember how far our laws reach? 5 light hours standard from the star, or out to and including the furthest orbiting body. The police officer rattles out. Which means that if they gotta go do something on, say, Centris or Zalwar, then we can't do a thing to them. And looky that, the 2 women I was slowly pressuring and walking real close had family emergencies or prior engagements way out there. Blazing Iron explains before he's handed a box of treats. Thanks, doll. That's doll. Right, doll, he says, and she rolls her eyes before looking towards Moni. Care for anything, detective? Investigator now, but yes, large, deep refresher, please. Coming right up. So how them girls at the station take my walking out? Are you trying to get shot? Money asks while answering. No, I just don't honey dip the things I say to people. If they can't take the unglazed truth, then the issue isn't with me, it's with the truth. Blazing Iron says taking out a honey-dipped pastry and biting it in half. At his sheer size, that's actually a reasonable mouthful. Are you both willing to testify against her? The younger officer asks. What's that? Blazing Iron asks. Are you both willing to throw your support behind me if I try to drag Gilio in for corruption? He says, and Blazing Iron puts away his snack, closes the box, and leads the younger officer to a side table well away from the counter and the door. Moni joins them, blocking the view of him from the outside as Iron blocks him from being seen from the restaurant. You mean that? Blazing Iron asks. I do. The big question, though, is why hasn't anyone else done anything? The younger officer states. Because half the judges are in Mangler's pocket, Hawthorne supposedly has the others. And that's not even touching the smaller time gangs. Blazing Iron notes. The city likes to look pretty for the touristy hunters. But on the off-season, this place is not visited often enough by bigger forces, and everyone stops paying attention. I know. That's when smugglers make a lot of use out of us. They're not here now as hunting season just kicked off again. Which makes this a perfect time to strike, Money states. But we need to find a judge that isn't in the pockets of outside parties. I've been looking into that. I've found one. They're ambitious and young, but she hasn't been bought out and will want something to point to really build her reputation. The young officer says, and Blazing Iron smiles. All right, little Great Hill supplanter, keep talking. Just Hill, Mr. Blazing Iron, the youthful bull. Joke's on you, kid. I like my full name. Besides, it's actually pronounced, Blazing Iron says before letting out a low and powerful moo that shakes the table. But I understand you don't got the lungs for that. Who does? Moni asks. Well, me for one. Blazing Iron notes flippantly. Scene change. Ace. She tilts her head as she listens in on the conversation below. Lopin have powerful ears, place the sheer power of sonar hearing on top of that, and she can easily hear everything. Then there's a distortion of axiom as the small bangle that her nephew had given her suddenly rings with power a half heartbeat before he's suddenly there. She grabs him tight and hugs him close. Aunt Ace, I wasn't gone that long. He protests and she nuzzles into him, glad that he's not only healthy but brave enough to come back. She shows a single hand sign to mean happiness, and he sighs like the dramatic teenager he is. Yeah, I'm glad you're happy, but it's really hot out and your fur is really warm, and he trails off as a touch of axiom is all she needs to cool down her immediate presence. Okay, but now I can't argue my way out of this. She starts laughing silently at that. OOCS, Into a Wider Galaxy, Part 377, Capes and Conundrums. All right, so here's how this little interview is going to work. Carrot and stick approach, we call it. You get the choice of cooperating for a reward or you don't cooperate, and we go for the legal consequences of attempted murder with a vehicle, property damage, reckless endangerment, and far more. Harold grins as the interviewer starts out strong. He nods. Things are good on the legal front, and he's in the hurry up and wait part of things, and he's already done the hurrying. So time to sort out the personal issues. Not that it should be too hard. The personal issue was more. The door opens to the waiting room and he huffs in amusement. Well, looks like my concern wasn't really a concern. They're watching the video that Herbert caught of Winifred waging absolute war against the Adela, and Yavra is outright cheering at the sight of her hefting a shuttle as an improvised club. So, is it more personal humility or different expectations? Demaya asks. Because there's no way you can do all that and not be considered a warrior of some kind, even a reluctant one or something. That's not a proper fight. That's me losing my temper and lashing out. Winifred dismisses with a wave of her paw, with her eyes closed before the sound of a large bowl being put down in front of her. A large salad bowl worth of porridge sweetened with honey. I sense that there's a joke I'm missing. Yes, but you're also getting a large portion of healthy and sweetened food out of it. So does it matter? What's the joke? Winifred asks as she picks up the bowl and sniffs the content. Old nursery rhyme that from the perspective of the creature you have similarities to involves some idiot breaking and entering into a family's home and eating their food before resting in the child's bed, Harold explains. What? It means it's mildly amusing by my perspective to make sure you have lots of porridge to eat. Is that a problem? Winifred notes as she takes a taste of the offered food. No problem. But I would like to hear this nursery rhyme. It's intended for children. I think there used to be an old moral to it, but things have long changed since then, Harold remarks. I'd still like to hear it. Scene change. Santiago Bernal, Robin White, Pavel Zimon. Requiring an escort for something this simple is almost insulting. Robin notes as lands the air car just outside City Hall. Due to most of the population being capable of flight under their own power, it actually was really good for parking spaces. Well, you're officially more lawyer than soldier, so since we're on alert, we need to make sure you're safe, Santiago says in a mildly apologetic tone. Right, and the fact that my combat training is at a level that the idiots bearing down at us are going to need protection from me rather than me from them? Robin asks, even as he tilts his head to the side, and he presses on a portion of his briefcase and it shrinks down until he fits it into a pocket, before withdrawing a clamshell case from his inner jacket pocket. Inside is a small armory. What is even going on? Throwing random thugs at us is not only pointless, but, Pavel begins. Something right out of the cartoons? Yeah, funny that, Santiago notes. Who wants to bet that our mysterious enemy is the same one that sent Miss Mangler's goons at us? It probably is, Pavel notes as he finishes assembling a large scoped rifle. He then leans over the air car and uses it to support the weapon even as Robin draws his pistol. A coil round slams into the car due to poor aim. The overuse of lasers and plasma in the galaxy means that people don't know how to take wind resistance and proper fall-off into consideration. Santiago finishes calling in the situation even as Pavel takes aim and squeezes off his first round of return fire. There are screams of fear, and the women instantly break and run away in a panic. The fuck, Pavel asks. Civilians? Armed fucking... Oh my God, whoever it is, they're playing with the public games. Robin realizes. Shit, Santiago says. Dispatch, this is Bernal. Enemy forces broke at the first sign of return fire. They are potentially duped civilians. Recommend non-lethal loadout. Copy that. I'm notifying the incoming squad now. Stay with Mr. White. You're still on bodyguard detail. Understood, Santiago states. Dispatch. This is feeling like a distraction. Something is up. You're not the only person to think so. We have another situation developing on the opposite end of the city. Something is definitely up, Santiago states. We're already moving to counter it, Dispatch says, and Santiago nods. Good to hear. We'll keep ourselves and the civvies alive. Good hunting, Dispatch. Thank you. Scene change. Bringer of enemy torment and Private Stream. Private Stream starts to lower the binoculars he's holding over his head, but she refuses to let them go. And when he does, they're left with the device held in midair as she looks through at the developing situation. So these things are natives? The things in question are a dozen bipedal raptor-like lizards, each one larger than most vehicles, and scattering and jumping around in a confused panic on their massively overdeveloped rear legs, but not actually chasing anyone or trying to cause damage. More blundering about as if they don't understand their environment and causing damage as they try to figure things out about it. Native animals with the biggest case of gigantism I've ever seen. They're supposed to be small enough that we could fit 5 or more of them comfortably on top of the binoculars you're holding, Private Stream says, and the binoculars are lowered somewhat as Bringer of Enemy Torment considers. The creature appears more confused and distressed than hostile. They're outright herbivores, so there's no hunting instinct. Plenty of panic instinct, though. But the smell of nearby food carts and restaurants is clearly confusing them. To say nothing of the fact this city doesn't even slightly resemble the ash-flecked grasslands and flower fields they call home. And their wings. They're awkwardly positioned and proportionally tiny. They are indeed. They help with jumping and maneuvering. The creatures are called little leapers generally, but they usually look different because normally they have glowing pollen on them. Pollen? They're pollinators, and Private Stream begins before one of the gigantic leapers looks up and spots the blimps before giving out a cry that would almost be cute if it didn't set the entire group into a bigger panic, and they all leap away as if they were spring-loaded. Shit! They both shift to get a better view as one of the now oversized monsters passes beneath. Torment passes the binoculars back, and Private Stream pockets it. Call in your friends. We need to wrangle these things. What? You want a good introduction to the galaxy? Here it is on a silver platter. Why silver? I'll explain later. Call them, Private Stream orders, before racing off after the nearest leaper. Put on the spot and feeling the world churning under her in ways that have nothing to do with the insanely active and eternally raging core of the world. Torment considers, then makes her decision. Scene change. Blazing Iron, Monitoyaran, Great Hill Supplanter. Things were wrapping up as they were all starting to move when a scream could be heard in the distance. Huh? Blazing Iron asks, rising up and getting out of the way for the quicker Money and Hill to rush by. He follows up after them with his snacks tucked under his arm. Giant Leaper! Someone calls out, and he blinks even as he leaves the building. Giant Leaper? What are they even... Wham! It's a little leper, looking like it was being held up to his eye from across the street. What in the name of... is all he can say before its legs visibly contort with far too much muscle for even an oversized leper, and it rockets away. He opens his box of snacks and takes a sniff. Nothing smells up. His food doesn't seem to be spiked. Did I just see that? If by that you man a little leaper, having taken all the combat stimulants, then yes, you did see that. Okay, good, so we're having mass hallucinations then. Wonderful, Blazing Iron notes. That was no illusion. It had some kind axiom effect forced on it and maintained by a totem. Money says, and Blazing Iron sighs as he expands the inside of his jacket and tucks in the box of treats. The sheer sensation of it puts a shiver down his spine, and his tail stiffens out in response. He hates the sensation. Scene change. Unknown. She hates loose ends. No matter how well you snip them, there's always something left. But if you entirely pull the thread, then more threads unravel. Okay, then, you two want to chase it down? Or find out where it came from? Both need to happen, he says. I'm faster, Moni states. So you want the chase? Yes, she says, and then Hill nods. He pulls out something from his own pocket before holding them up. Custom communicators with the badge of the police force on it. You two are temporarily deputized. I'm getting my car and chasing. Hill states, and Blazing Iron and Money both take a communicator and clip them on. Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3. Blazing Iron says into his, and it echoes out of Hill's and Moni's. 1, 2, 3, testing. Moni adds before nodding. Go, Hill orders as he brings out another communicator. Chief, we have someone expanding lepers. I'm pursuing in a police cruiser. Blazing Iron. The youthful bull and Monitoyaran are temporarily deputized under my authority to assist in the chase, Hill states before there's a loud screech from above, and he looks up. More than lepers have been expanded. More Scathach wildlife is attacking the city. We need everyone. But she can't afford them at this stage, especially not with potential challenges to her endgame appearing. So she was doing something incredibly stupid, immensely risky, and in many cases suicidal. If half the rumors were true, she'd have already been busted, which means they weren't. But barring deliberately starting rumors, there was always a source to something. Even if the Undaunted aren't as competent as they're portrayed as, they want to be seen as such. So any ding on their reputation would be hunted down ruthlessly and without delay. Meaning the only way out of this was to not even be seen. The tiny drone delicately maneuvers through the ventilation of the blimp, not touching the walls, not touching the floor or ceiling, and taking its time to slowly calculate tiny teleports, just 1 or 2 meters across at a time. Minimal axiom use, less obtrusiveness, and a payload so small that the entire setup could fit in the palm of a Tret's hand. The controller for the drone was easily 10 times the size of the drone itself, and she was not now, nor had she ever physically been in direct contact with the drone. So there would be no DNA traces in case the drone was found and its signal traced. Through vent after vent, the delicate microphone of the drone causes her to pause it time after time to let humans, Tretz, Sunir, and several other species to pass around it. Making sound dampening that wrapped around everything but the receiver of the microphone had been time-consuming, difficult, annoying, and ultimately worth it. Sunir, Fossa, and their ilk were the biggest threats to this operation, and "The hell?" a voice asks, as the visual of a long feather-like appendage sticking upwards at an angle asks. It turns to reveal there is another, and moments later the furry face and lamplight eyes of an Urthani are staring right into the vent. "Is something up, Longflight?" "Something's here. It's on the electromagnetic spectrum, just floating in the air like a spark." She swears to herself. Thankfully, there's no speaker on the drone to let the Urthani man know what she thinks of him as the Urthani dips down a little and his antennae start waving away to try and triangulate where the source of the strangeness is. What is it? Clearly mechanical. There's like a circuit board, wires and capacitors. I barely noticed it at first. Longflight says, taking the cover off the vent and moving to reach in with his claws. She sends the drone forward and he flinches back by sheer reflex. She uses this to zip the drone out at maximum speed and away from him. She hears him make a spiting noise and jolts the drone to the side to dodge the proboscis. But it's much, much larger than she assumed, and one of the drone rotors is damaged by the assault. He growls to herself as the drone falls down, and she activates the beacon anyways, transporting the contents of a container in the back of this small shuttle to teleport to the drone. The container, without its safety precautions, instantly overloads and detonates in a blast of plasma. She sighs further as she puts down the controller, turns off the shuttle's engines, and activates her recall beacon. She vanishes from the shuttle well before it hits the lava. OOCS, Into a Wider Galaxy, Part 378, Capes and Conundrums. Holy hell! Longflight screams as the plasma washes over him. Thankfully, the protective totem in his belt buckle is already working and reduces the damaging and devastating plasma blast into a spectacular but harmless light show. At first, the floor isn't quite so protected, and plasma still has some weight to it. Whoa! The floor melts under him and he falls down. He tries to spread out his wings, but the hole isn't big enough, and the area is melting around him as he falls twice more and then out of the blimp's bottom entirely. With enough room to maneuver, he spreads his wings out and flutters to the side, slag running down his uniform as alarms go out, and he stares out over the city. His antennae are going berserk at the exposed wiring and the sheer disruption the now dissipating plasma is giving off. Sweet Song! Longflight Sweet Song, come in. Do you read? His communicator goes off. He grabs it. Sweet Song here. I am mostly fine. A little rattled, but unharmed, he says, looking around. Dispatch. I'm seeing several large predatory birds flying around the city and large bipedal lizards jumping around. I do not think I have been concussed. And large wild animals have been set loose in the city. Someone's pulling something. Yes, someone is. Can you get to a landing pad safely? I can. I assume you want to debrief me. When this mess is over, yes. But since you're in good health, I want you to rendezvous with our other flight-capable soldiers to enact a search and rescue of anyone being attacked by those large birds. The civilians may be an energetic sort, but they will still need help, Dispatch says. Right, I'm heading to landing pad. Starboard 3, Longflight says. The team will meet you there. What about the base? We have teams already there. We suspect you prevented that bomb from getting near vital areas. It's only burned through hallways, vents, hull, and wiring. No one was hurt. Not even you, at the heart of the blast. But who did it? Longflight asks. That's the million-dollar question. But we can only get to answering it after we've put out all the fires, both literal and metaphorical. Right, on my way. Scene change. Blazing iron. The scream of despair cuts through the air as the so-near woman is held in the crushing grip of the oversized bird, and its head comes down to feast. Then it gets the horns. Off her ya, feathery pest! Blazing iron screams out as his horns pierce feather flesh and bone, and he hurls his head back while running as much power through his horns as he can, hypercharging them with electricity and electrocuting the oversized predator. He sends the creature tumbling over the ground even as it spasms. He picks up the terrified Sonier. Get yourself into cover, the alleyways, it's too big for that place. Go, he tells her. She's looking around in a blind panic, and he gives her a shake. Girl! What? Get into the alley so it can't follow you, he tells her, and comprehension dawns on her face. She takes off even as the enormous bird rises up and he turns, pawing at the ground with his hooves and sucking in an enormous breath before letting out a massive, challenging bellow. Grabbing the full attention of not only the injured beast but another, trying to grab at a Senior woman in the sky. The injured one gives out a call and the one in the sky answers, as do several others that Blazing Iron had been unaware of. Of course, gang tactics, typical, he says as the injured one raises its wings and starts slowly advancing to draw his attention as the one in the sky starts circling. Then the two birds call out at once as the one on the ground jumps forward to try and peck at him as the other starts to drop. He knows how these things hunt. He fell asleep in front of the TV just last week and woke up with a documentary of these beasties playing. But these things only hunt other animals, not people, and people are a lot more dangerous. He charges then. Before it can bring down its beak, he pumps in the axiom and slams into the chest of the monster horns first. The immense muscles needed to pump the wings are thick, but his horns are close enough and electricity runs through them again. Short of using the organ as a speed bag, he attacks the bird's heart as literally as possible. The enormous monster twitches and screams as it contorts around the electrical attack. Then he rips his horns out of the monster's chest and turns, crowned in blood and feathers, to face the diving partner to the first hawk. It suddenly contorts in midair as reality seems to pummel it, and then a Sonier dives onto the giant bird feet first. Her claws rip feathers out of its neck before reaching flesh, and blood is quickly spilled. By the time the creature hits the ground, it's nearly decapitated under the unrelenting assault of the Sonier claws. Why the fuck are swoop collars the size of shuttles? What is going on? The Sonier demands. Do you know something? Only that they're big enough to think we're on the menu now. Blazing Iron answers as he wipes some blood and feathers off his head before running his hands along his horns to degunk them a bit. He's going to need a long shower after this, and he's going to be smelling bird blood for a while afterwards. There's a loud and distinctive bang as an Undaunted gets nearby enough to start shooting down the giant birds. Then a pause, then another bang. The second on causes one of the few birds that Blazing Iron can see to jerk and fall out of the air. He nods at the sight. Good. There was a hard metal response to the big pests. The Undaunted might be weird, but they get shit done fast. Is it safe to come out now? The Sonier he saved asks. Give it a minute to be sure. They've only started shooting them out of the sky. Scene change. Bringer of enemy torment. Torment's grip tightens on the chain she had grabbed as she tries to steer the monster. The creature has been fed some kind of feedback axiom effect worked into its very presence. It was unnaturally huge, but wasn't able to scree. It really doesn't like her being on its back. The leaper slams into the ground and bounces off as if reality was made of rubber. Thankfully, the re-entry training and zero-G training combined to give her a strong stomach and the knowledge on how to deal with gravity and momentum playing against her. The creature thrashes as they go down, but she has her grip slack enough to allow for play. It tenses up again as they reach the bottom, and she hardens her grip and stays on even as it hits the ground and launches off again in the same moment. This creature has so much bounce in its step that they may very well land on some of the shorter skyscrapers, and if that happens, they're likely to hit a blimp. She closes her hood to not be so rattled around. Sure, it makes her visible, but she's trying to wrangle a dangerous animal, trying to help this city. If there's any situation where being seen is permissible, then it's here. It thrashes to try and shake her as she tries to steer it out of the city. Despite the danger it presents, she's not eager to kill this thing. It's just an animal, a pawn in someone else's game, twisted and transformed against its will into a threat. She can somewhat relate. Hey, you need help killing it? A voice asks, and her head turns to see a young Tret steering a police cruiser. He's on speaker. It's just an animal. It doesn't mean to hurt people. She calls back even as the leaper thrashes and then goes still as it prepares itself to land on top of a skyscraper. Oh shit! It springs off the top of the building and launches itself higher and higher than before. Her training had never even entertained the idea of taking control of a wild animal to ride, let alone one in a panic. She needs to take control. Force it to understand that she's in charge. Otherwise, it's going to kill itself and injure her. Neither is something she's willing to let it do. She locks her legs under its forelimbs and digs in her heels, even as she gives out an authoritative hiss and pulls at the axiom, bringing them together and forcing the creature to feel what she feels. Its head turns to face her, and she stares it right in the eyes as she feels the barely there workings of its mind with her own. Then she nods forward, and the creature turns to face forward, tenses up, and then bounces off the side of the blimp without causing any damage. There we go, she exclaims as the leaper accepts her control. Sisters, the animals can be controlled. Use Axiom to speak with their instincts. Work with them. Guide them out and away from the city. Bring them to where it is safe for all. Commander, something is emerging from the eastern wall of the cavern. Her communicator rings out at the same time the police vehicle that was close by suddenly rockets away. She and her leaper descend below the level of the blimps, and she can see what looks to be a small star emerging from the cavern wall to slither out as a colossal serpent. Scene change. Monty Toyarin, Great Hill supplanter. Hill is outright growling as he races his vehicle and starts making the call. City defense cannon, we need you to turn to the east as far as you can go. Someone has managed to drop a lava serpent into the eastern cavern. We don't have the authority or firing permissions to. I don't care about technicalities. We need that thing dead, or thousands will die. Turn the damn gun. We're locked out from doing that. I'm almost there. Just give me and my deputy a clear path in. I'll handle the rest. You'll handle it? The voice on the other end demands, but he hangs up. How? Money asks. You can bend space, right? Even if we can't turn the gun, I can force it to fire. How's your aim with that kind of nonsense? No idea. Well, it's a big target at any rate. That should help. Hill states as he brings the cruiser down across 3 parking spaces just outside the defense cannon. The door is only starting to open as he sprints into it, throwing it open wider with Moni right behind him. This is highly irregular and... One of the fucking monsters is inside the cavern. It needs to die now, Hill states as he almsot throws one of the technicians out of the way and quickly inserts his communicator into part of the system, and it starts overriding things. A few commands and he sighs before pressing a few more. The roof pulls away in the small building, and they rise up so that the gun has a wider firing arc. The entire platform and massive weapons start to turn and reorient themselves before stopping. Limit reached. Money! Bend space! I need to shoot! On it! Money states as her axiom tattoos start glowing brightly enough to be seen through her clothing and reveal a massive twisting pattern that shifts in a spiral down her body. Lit up in a manner halfway between circuit board and grasping vine, Monty reaches her hands out and then opens them to form a wedge. At the console, Hill is at the visual readout shifts and shows a massive heat signature. Firing in 3, 2, 1! The massive cannon goes off and a huge plume of bottled blue fire rockets out from the cannon and twists in the air to shoot directly to the advancing serpent. It ducks, then starts moving much, much faster. Adjusting aim, Money says. Go! Firing! Hill shouts and the cannon goes off again. There is a roar of fury that shakes the city. We nicked it. I need another shot, Hill orders. A moment, Money states. Now! The weapon fires a third time, and after the massive plume of energy, the sensors indicate the heat levels dropping. The monster is dead. Okay, thank you very, very much, Moni. I don't care who I have to do what to. If you want back on the force, it's going to happen. If not, I'll find some other way to pay you back. Oh boy, that was a lot, Hill says, letting out a breath. You okay, kiddo? Moni asks, and Hill gives her a stern look. I know I may not look it, but I am well over 2 centuries of age. I've been in law enforcement just as long, and I'm no amateur. Really? Yes, really. I was in Southwestern for that entire time before my transfer in a few years ago. Remember? I thought that was because you couldn't be supported by that department. It was because the department there was overstaffed and the one here was understaffed. Things haven't gotten much better since. OOCS into a wider galaxy, part 379, Capes and Conundrums. So, what do you think Chief Gilia will think about this? Money asks, and Hill just sighs. Who knows, Hill asks as he takes a breath. The day's not over. The lava serpent was no doubt some kind of capstone, but the city is still infested with oversized animals. There are reports of explosions, and all the ensuing panic in both average citizens and hunter tourists means there will be chaos. He puts the cannon into standby mode and the entire massive weapon emplacement rights itself and sinks back into the outer casing that does double duty as a building. As the massive mechanism slots itself back into place and the enormous weapon is sheathed, he offers Moni a smile. Still with me, Deputy? Yes, sir, she says, and they head to the police cruiser. The staff around the cannon part around them, looking at them as if in awe. Okay, all of you get over it. You still have a job to do, Officer Hill states, and there is some movement, and he sighs. It takes only a few moments for them to reach the cruiser and take off. We're going after the birds, then? Yes, the Undaunted no doubt already have people, and there they are, seeing to the explosion at their blimp and are setting people out. The big issue are the birds. They're predators. The leapers are going to try and get away from people. The birds, they'll see prey. Victims. Then he hits the accelerator and Moni spots it right away. One of the birds is diving. They've spotted prey. The cruiser accelerates and rushes hard enough to press them both back into their seats as Hill grits his teeth at the sight. Closer and closer they fly to the enormous bird before Hill pulls ahead and slows the vehicle. The bird lets out a screech. Its talons slam into the car, but Moni is already reinforcing it with Axiom, and its enormous hooked claws skitter across the glass as the beast tries and fails to rip into the car and get at them both. Clearly furious. All citizens get into a confined and contained area, inside buildings, alleyways, and such. These birds cannot reach you in those places. Go, Hill declares over the speaker. The massive bird then tries to get at them again by turning the vehicle over in its talons and pecking at HTE window. The window that Hill then lowers and shoots a plasma pistol out of and directly into the face of the monster. It's so large that the damage isn't instantly lethal, but the following 3 shots finish the deal. Hill goes for the speaker first. Look out below, falling bird. Scene change. Bringer of enemy torment. It's actually working. The sheer raving madness is actually working. The creature, the leper, is moving with her, and she can start to properly understand things. There is a familiar pattern to things in its Axiom presence that isn't normal. Unless these things just naturally have the ability to expand in size, but are in a panic for some reason. But even that doesn't work. Her new mount is being calmed by her constantly. These creatures are native fauna, but they're supposed to be tiny and have no recording of ever having a self-expansion. Commander, a voice says over her communicator, I read you. These creatures are proving shockingly easy to get control of. We're beginning to suspect that they've been accidentally or deliberately conditioned to lure in riders. We're taking these beasts out of the city to the ash dunes beyond. We need to get them away from important infrastructure at minimum, preferably well away from civilians in case there's some kind of switch that makes them grow fangs and go crazy, or some kind of bomb implanted in them. Torment commands. Right on it. Commander, we are having an issue. Wind resistance forces you to draw your hood back. I know. Ma'am, some of us are scared. This is dangerous. Dangerous in ways we're not trained for. I know, but all things are found eventually. And if we're going to be introduced to these people, then saving them from a terrorist is about as good an introduction as we can get. Torment reasons. I don't like being seen. Neither do I, Torment admits. But we're being seen, so we may as well look our best. Copy that. We're heading towards you. Lead us out, Commander, her girl says, and she tilts her head in acknowledgement, then starts turning her leper towards the outskirts of the city and it takes a few steps, then launches itself. The ash-strewn wind whistles around them, and with her own axiom expertise, bracing the damage, the leopard jumps again and again without causing further harm. This is hilarious and awesome. Private Stream's voice echoes from her communicator as she moves quickly. Thank you. Please get off the line, she says shortly. But I'm helping round up lepers. He protests audibly and she turns her head to see him descending while standing on the back of a leper. I'm on a lizard. Yes, yes you are. She agrees in bewilderment. What does being on a lizard have to do with anything? Then he whistles and laughs to himself. She's clearly missing something. Scene change. Ace, Terry, Drac, Nightwings, Todd, Hafid, Brutality. The confrontation with the enormous bird would be a lot more dangerous for Drac if not for the immensely useful and powerful piece of technology he brought with him. A powerful weapon that has claimed countless lives and has been mass-produced in such quantities that people's eyes slide over them entirely. A stick. Terry finishes his mocking commentary of the fight as his uncle whacks at the enormous bird. The whole time Drac tries hard not to laugh at the sheer amount of sass coming his way. Ace offering applause in her silent way doesn't help, especially because neither is sure who the applause is actually for. All right, well done, Drac. Time to investigate it. Brutality notes. I still say we should have just killed it. Todd notes. It's an animal. No more responsible for its actions than the wind. Hafid protests. There's also the fact that axiom effects rapidly begin to decay after death. Nightwings adds in as Brutality begins examining the thoroughly knocked out bird. It's why we couldn't just hit it with a sleep effect either. We need to know what's being done to these things. To say nothing of the fact that they might be primed to attack people far more than is normal. Brutality notes. Everyone is in full armor, and Hafid had insisted point blank on coming, even forcibly accelerating his own healing to an extreme that left him looking exhausted to be there. The family knew better than to try and stop him. Such a thing would only result in more injuries. Look here. This part of the axiom flow has been deliberately altered, but there doesn't seem to be anything in the way of an implanted totem. Brutality says as he shifts the wing of the bird. He indicates right where the wing meets the joint. You're right, not Kutha, but the telltale mineral signs of an axiom tattoo are missing as well. Nightwing says as he holds the wing out of Brutality's way. What's the chemical scanner say? Are we missing something? No, it's not that at all. Brutality notes before he brushes against the feathers and notes how they slowly return to their normal configuration. Look at that. The very skin underneath is altered, but the tone is largely the same. It could almost be mistaken for scar tissue. They branded the creatures? Hafid demands in a fury. Yes, someone tortured these animals into expanding in size, Brutality states. Judging from the actual size difference between the common scathic hawk, also known as the swoop caller. Did you say its full name to buy time in order to crunch the numbers? Terry asks and gets a sideways glance from Brutality. Regardless, the individual responsible will be even more difficult to find. These creatures can be produced from a device that can fit into a pocket. Hafid has approached the still unconscious bird. Do you need any other clues from it? I think we've learned all we can. There's no bands, trackers, or chips on this thing as far as I can tell. Just the Axiom brand, Nightwing says. Do it, Brutality tells him, and Hafid places a hand over the marping and then gently reaches up to the creature's head to keep things calm and heal it. The enormous monster shrinks in size and is reduced until Hafid holds it easily within his arms. He gently strokes the breast of the sleeping animal. There we are. We'll bring you topside when it's safe to go, little hunter. Back to your normal prey and favored roosts. Axiom brands on animals. Not much of a lead. A brand on a person is generally regarded as a psychotic thing to do. But animals are different, and since the animals are local, that's even less of one. If they were more exotic things, then... Todd starts puzzling out before shrugging. Then we have no choice but to chase down other potential leads and use what we learned here for confirmation. Brutality offers. Double-check everyone. Do you all have at least a totem for heat resistance? Where the snake slithered out of, Drac asks. Where the snake slithered out of. Brutality confirms. Scene change. Harold, Giria, Dumia, Uma, Agatha, Javra, Velocity, and Winifred. The howling winds of the higher altitude running over the ragged hole in the blimp makes a sound halfway between screaming and whistling, and is no better for being right in their faces. This doesn't make sense. That drone was in no way holding such a payload. Even if it was in an expanded space, then the plasma would have been unleashed directionally, rather than simply bursting out in every direction in a uniform manner. Dumaya says, looking over the camera feeds of the very moment the plasma vented outwards. Can the opening be shaped to spray like that, Javra? Not really. We can make them circles. We can make almost complete spheres. But look here and here. We have multiple angles of this happening. There's no gap, meaning that the opening was a perfect circle, which shouldn't be possible. I'm thinking a teleportation beacon, Harold notes. Then the plasma would have to have been kept active in a container reinforced against extreme heat and with the required totem to teleport from its side. That drone was far too small to have anything too sophisticated, Winifred considers. Not without expanding tech being used to temporarily make it bigger for fine detail work. Harold agrees. But regardless of how it was done, it was not an off-the-rack product. Something that small is used by only 3 organizations: military, conservation, and criminal. What about law enforcement? Winifred asks. I count that as military, just a lot milder and more open. Harold remarks as he reaches down and rubs against the burnt-out piece of flooring. He then hops down and grabs the lip to look in between and try and spot something, anything that may still be out of place, or a hint that there may be some kind of bug or secondary explosive. Command, this is Harold. I'm not seeing any bugs but my own in here. Your own? Funny thing, listening devices and other bits of spy gear just seem to manifest in my presence. I'll get you the frequencies for these ones. That way you can use them. Harold replies. All right, moving down to next level. He swings into the next level down and examines things again and again, until he's hanging out the underside of the blimp in his investigations. Still nothing? Giria asks as she lowers her upper body through the burnt-out holes and asks him. Nothing at all. The attack really seems like a one and done, but it hit nothing important, which would suggest that there should be another attack. But there's nothing, Giria says. Yeah, that's concerning. They might be focused on getting away, Giria says as she offers a hand to Harold. He takes it and she hefts him back up and places him on the deck safe and sound. Which is what has me worried. Enemies that run and make a getaway are a problem for later. But I'm not even sure we were the target. If they wanted to hurt the Undaunted, they would have blown up that thing sooner or in a better position. As best I can tell the most likely route the drone must have taken, it would have passed far, far better targets than what it actually destroyed. So was it ignorance or focus? Velocity asks. That's the big question. OOCS into a wider galaxy, part 380, Capes and Conundrums. They arrive at the burned-out and melted section of wall. Numerous hunters and police are already there, and the stones are still so hot that any unprotected skin is getting burnt in moments. A couple fire aeromenta, an Apuk and a Canador with reinforced boots and gauntlets are examining things as several undaunted soldiers are assisting the police keeping the more reckless and careless away. No lava serpent had ever attacked the city before. This was getting all the attention, and, hey, can't you see the police line? Back away before you get yourselves cooked through. The heat here is second only to the trenches. My name is Brutality Wayne. My family and I are all legal bounty hunters and registered investigators in numerous jurisdictions. The only one without a direct license is my grandson Terrence, who is here to learn as we work. Brutality says, pulling out an ID and showing the officer who takes it and quickly runs a scan. You've got a lot of registered jurisdictions and even more captures sweet primals. I've been at this for a while, although to be fair, a lot of those were with the assistance of my many, many students and children. You're the teaching sort. My father taught me that there is a great good in helping others. This is how I interpreted it. Brutality says genially. Well, you certainly took the lesson to heart if your family here is any indication. And is that one a child? Teen, a few short years from being a legal adult. My grandson. I see, she says. Is most of your family male? There is a higher propensity for sons than is normal among the Wayne family. Heh, Wayne, just like in the Goofy stories. Did you change it? No, it's pre-existing. Brutality notes in a mildly irritated tone. Oh, the city must be awkward for you to be in. It's something, Brutality states calmly. But more importantly, we're going to take a look at the entrance hole. Do you have thermal protection? Anyone without massive heat resistance is going to cook alive just going near it. We have it handled, thank you. Are you sure? The small cavern the thing came out of is retaining heat even more than the corpse of the monster. I'm certain. Thank you for your concern, madam. Brutality states, and she sighs but nods. As Brutality heads back to the group, there is a sudden whistle, and he turns his head to see Harold, walking barefoot over the obsidian so hot it has heat distortions coming off it. Where are your boots? I didn't want them to melt, he says as if that bit of madness made any sense. Anyways, we got hit with a plasma blast from a drone within a few minutes of the serpent showing up, to say nothing of the lizards and birds. The odds of it being a coincidence are so long as to be absurd. Okay, and why are you not wearing boots? I want to feel the melted glass squelch between my toes. Can we focus? You're crazy, someone nearby notes, and Harold turns to stick his tongue out at them before turning back to Brutality. Back to topic. You think that whoever set off an explosive inside your facility also unleashed the beasts? And may have been responsible for the attack on Hafid. Do you now? Brutality asks. Too many events happening all at once. I figure it's best to consider them all connected, investigate each part, but be ready to chase them all down to the end, even if it proves you wrong. An interesting mindset. Do you have anyone on Mr. Tonk then? I have 4 private streams following him, 3 in a trench coat and being obvious as they gather attention, 1 to be mildly seen from afar, and then the actual spy is not perceivable by any senses they have demonstrated. Could you repeat that, please? Scene change, 4 streams in rain. It was purest madness. How and why the private stream drones even had to sit on each other's shoulders under a long coat protocol in their automatic state was baffling. The one on the top trying to look mysterious and surreptitious was more attention-getting than the pile-up of miniature people they were sitting on and taking almost all attention away from the one peering out from around corners. All this meant that even if Halford Tonk had the capacity to detect her, he'd be so distracted by the nonsense happening that he likely wouldn't. On some level, she understands. A comedy of errors happening in eyeshot and clearly to people trying to spy on you would have someone put their guard up in entirely the wrong direction and put it down completely facing the wrong way. Hence why she was currently copying everything on the data chip she had stolen from the man. Her being subtle is just a case of reflex at this point, and honestly, it was just another Vishanian rockets overhead riding a giant jumping lizard. She pauses for a moment at the absurdity of reality, and then looks down to find out that the copy was complete, and she took it out and tucked the chip back into place as she slowly reaches into and starts going through Tonk's expanded pocket as he stares at the private stream with the big obvious notepad taking big obvious notes. More likely he's scribbling something. Really? Apparently Halford has found his limit and she barely manages to move with him, standing up incredulously. She pulls her hand away before being noticed as the trench coat streams topple over, rip the coat and scramble into different directions with cries of distress. Even if she was perfectly visible, she'd be invisible with that mess happening. I give up. Today is too weird, too everything, Halford says with a sigh before putting down money for the drink he had ordered at the cafe and walking away. Stalked over and over again. Animal attacks. A fucking lava serpent in the city. How much more insane can things get? She follows him closely, always on the opposite side of the stalking private stream to make sure that, if he suddenly turns to point, that he's not going to smack her or something. But he leads her to a public transport and then breaks into a run to slip onto a bus before private stream can get there. She also fails to get on, but she's more than capable of phasing through the door way shortly before it takes off and just standing in the entrance, letting things calm down axiom-wise before moving, and then carefully picking her way into a place to stand near him. Finally, Halford notes to himself with Rain right there to listen to him. God damn it, Mother, you've overdone things today. Not a technical confession, not admissible in any court, but that's axiom ride level, valuable on the slip-up level. Several swoop callers are being brought down more peacefully in the distance as the sheer chaos that had hit the city calms down, and Halford sighs. Subtle as Scathach itself. Again, axiom ride level valuable, but not proof in and of itself. She keeps close to him as he arrives at his destination and gets off at the 33rd level platform between multiple skyscrapers. The plateau-top gardens looking bright and inviting, with active sun lamps pointed right at them to give the impression of being outside, despite the entire city being in a cavern. There is a private stream already there, waiting with a local book held up in front of his face, complete with obvious eye holes to watch Halford with. The man sighs and walks up to the little synth. Okay, that is far more than enough. Why are you stalking me? Stalking? Who said anything about stalking? The private stream asks. I did because you were stalking me, Halford says. Why? Abandon mission, private stream suddenly calls out and half the plants suddenly stand up and run away. The one on the bench goes nowhere as Halford grabs him by the collar. Explanations, now. Training? Training. We need to know how to position ourselves around public figures without getting in the way or causing harm, so... This is bodyguard training? Yes. Then why are you trying to spy on me? We need to make sure nothing got into Yoru food or clothes or... Okay, did I accidentally sign a contract somewhere that states I can be used as a training dummy? Yes. Where? Right here. When the undaunted were permitted to set up in the city, we got approval to perform nonviolent exercises in public, so long as we do not interfere with the standard business of the residence or administration. See here, your employer, the mayor, signed it, and therefore it's considered legally binding that you... Hey! Private Stream starts to explain before the communicator's plucked out of his hands, and Halford begins examining the contract. Give it back! Private Stream says, climbing onto the bunch to grab at it, and Halford steps away, then holds it higher as Private Stream makes a jump for it, then starts repeating himself with endless repetitions of, give it back, give it back. This is actually legal, and you're putting your stalking of me into this? Not stalking, protective detail. And what about that one writing on a notepad? Jerry, he doodles. You're all raw recruits, aren't you? Halford asks. How'd you guess? It's obvious, Halford says. Consider this a direct order. I am no longer an appropriate target for practice protection detail for, let's say, the next week. I'm very high-strung after what had happened. I thought you'd like having extra protection with all the craziness going on. Not when it's closer to a comedy skit. Now get, he says, throwing the communicator away so it lands in a nearby garden, and the Private Stream goes running for it. Halford gives off a sigh and continues on his way, this time without any Private Streams nearby. He visibly relaxes and makes his way to one of the buildings the massive plateau is attached to. Rain attaches a small beacon to the back of his belt before he enters a portal. Then she uses the lowest profile teleport she knows to follow him after the beacon. She grabs it off his belt right before he can start reaching around there, and he turns. He senses something, but can't seem to see anything. Little bastards put me on high alert, Halford notes before entering his penthouse apartment. Rain follows after him by phasing through the wall some 3 meters to the side. Halford is looking her way, but can't see a thing, and the axiom distortion fades fast enough for him to dismiss his paranoia. His shoes go off, his key cards are tossed into a bowl made of both polished obsidian and quartz crystal in abstract spirals that give it an almost ethereal look. Rain just looks around in minor awe. The apartment is way, way too rich and wealthy for a man on his budget to afford. Some of the art pieces in here are so delicately refined that even if they weren't rare, they'd still be worth enough to make having them highly suspicious for anyone other than the truly wealthy. And an upper middle-rank civil servant is not at that level, not legally at any rate. Still, he clearly has a specific taste, one that shows crystals with prism, like qualities merge with polished obsidian to create both black and white and broken rainbow hues over everything. As she cases the room and adds more and more zeros to the sheer level of expense she's seeing, Halford retrieves something being held in a chilled compartment. A crystal decanter of something expensive that he pours into an obsidian glass and takes a bracing drink of. I hate this city, he mutters to himself. He refills his drink and slots the decanter back into the misty container and closes it. I really do. Well, even if he's not guilty of anything, she still is getting her hands on some decent blackmail. He then looks into her direction and squints. Is something there? The drink is thrown out the glass at her, and she pulls as quietly on the axiom as she can to let it phase through her. The drink passes through without slowing down and sloughs on the floor. He looks in her direction, his ears tilting, his eyes keen, his nose flaring as he tries to catch something, anything that might tell him he's not safe and alone. Little bastards, drone, cleaning. He simply sits and waits as a small cleaning drone enters the room and starts polishing the floors. He puts his cup on top of it as it passes by and just relaxes on his couch. Then after the drone is finished, he flutters upwards and grips onto a plush, reinforced and comfortable grip on the ceiling. There are pops as his back realigns and he sighs in relief. He then lets out a piercing whistle and large privacy screens descend over the windows and the doors close. Rain positions herself to make sure her camera is pointed right at him and goes flawlessly still as a screen activates on the ceiling. A strange creature is on the other side. It is small and furry with silvery and gray fur, sharp claws tipping. Its fingers that remind her of a strange halfway point between Urthani and Canador claws. Its muzzle is rounded, its teeth are sharp, and it has an undoubtedly female body. My child, if you are watching this, then our plans have been pushed around and I'm in hiding. Do not do anything to draw attention to yourself. Remember the long game. Remember the prize. A whole world in our hands. Both Tonks say at once, and the message ends. He then sighs and just hangs there. Fucking nosy bastards. Where did that fucking blood-drinking hypocrite come from? How did he get here so fast? And bring his whole family to boot? He was on Albrith. Albrith. Did he come with the humans? How? He runs his hands over his face and musses himself up to wake up before hanging even looser and letting his wings stretch out and even lay on the floor. There are a few more cracks as he relaxes further and seems to almost grow a little taller as a result. Everything we did just got the bastard closer. It's supposed to be a funny coincidence when alien media matches up to reality. Not this damn accurate, he groans. And the idiot's brother is opening a branch of the family conglomerate here now. And I don't have any legal way to say no without criminalizing it. I know they're at least looking at me. He makes a point of pressing down with his wings and then lets go with his claws and lowers himself to the floor. Thankfully, the undaunted are idiots, and they seem to be accidentally screening me. The benefits of playing in the rules. He then pauses and his wings slowly moves to, and then through the still phasing rain. He then lets out a small number of slight yips and small screeches as his ears twitch to try and catch things. But he gets nothing. Playing this role has made me paranoid as all hell. I need a bath. He mutters to himself and walks away, then spins around and swipes through the still phasing rain, fluttering up and slashing his claws through the area, and then letting out a scream that causes the artwork to rattle and shake. His face presses through her neck as he tries to figure it out, and then he walks away on his knuckles as fruit sonar occasionally do. Bath, nap, and a blowjob. I need all three.